The competitive 40K network presents Art of War. Art of War. Strategy and tactics. Discussions with the best players on the planet. Now your host, Nick Nanavati.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Art of War podcast. This week, we are blessed by the Dark Gods themselves to have a wonderful Chaos representative in the house, Derek Apsche. How's it going, Derek?
I can't complain.
That is great. You have been on a roll. You've been absolutely killing it, dude. You've got your Accursed cultists. I think you're solely responsible for their ridiculous 90% win rate with your Chaos cults. Your list is a monstrosity of dudes. It's like 200 plus bodies. And you got second place at the Atlantic City Open, now first place at the Nova Open. This is some like impressive results. Congratulations.
Thanks. I mean, I honestly wished I got on this podcast just because of how, I guess, oversought this list was. I remember watching a battle report where you ranked the tiers for Chaos Space Marines, and this was at a D tier for you guys. And it might have been ranked that way because it's really hard to play. But when I saw that, I kind of took that personally.
Oh, man.
Like, let's go.
I remember that tier list. Now, it was before I'd actually played any games with this detachment. And then I played, I think, 2 games now with it since then. This is like 6 months ago or whatever. And like, I saw the power, dude.
Yeah,
you're onto some stuff with this detachment.
Lone Star Open too. Like we won first place and got our first golden ticket there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the list. We're going to go through the strategy, how it all works. This is a newcomer onto the meta, and I think it's highly misunderstood. So I want to make sure we really get into it. But before we do all that, let me intro the show real quick. We talk about competitive Warhammer. We're going to interview Derek. We're going to get to know him, his play style. Derek has been playing Warhammer in miniatures games for a long time. He's back from the Northeast, which is my home. And I'm really excited to just get to know about how that meta has developed and created this monstrosity of an army and how he pilots it. And then once we get through all that and we get through how the list works, we're going to head over to part 2, which is for our Patreons. That's going to be our subscription area. For $5 a month, you get access to part 2 of this episode, along with 250 plus other episodes and our Discord server. In this episode specifically, Derek's going to walk us through his games at the Nova Open, all 9 of them, how he won with 200 plus bodies in a grueling environment, chess clocks, time shadow rounds. Like, it's tough. It's a tough event to physically play, to mentally play, and then not let alone winning all 9 games. So we're going to go through all of that with the man himself and get it straight from the horse's mouth. Derek, are you ready?
I'm excited.
I'm excited too. This is a long time coming. Tell me about how you got into Warhammer.
So it's funny because I've known you for a long time. I was a lot younger back in college playing at the old grounds days.
Yeah.
And I was playing like against Matt DeFranza, yourself, Jesse, like all these guys, and that was just probably one of the most competitive stores out there. Like,
dude, this is back in like 2012.
Yeah, like it was a long time ago. So I came up with it competitively. Like I got into it competitively, learned from the best, and then kind of took a hiatus because everybody at the store was going into another game called War Machine. Well, War Machine kicked off. I started doing really well at that. And did that for about 7 years through college, which then those guys went back to 40K. Well, I stayed on the Nova train. Once COVID hit, nobody was playing War Machine anymore. We had a two-year hiatus. And then I got in touch with a buddy of mine, Jack, who I got back into 9th edition with 40K. And I still had my models, Grey Knights, weren't the best at the time, and kind of just like learned the rules in 9th and just rapidly picked it right back up. And I think 9th compared to when you played like back in 7th, like Flying Demons, it's a completely different game. Like anybody can get in this game now and it feels way more balanced than showing up the store and just not being able to roll dice and just losing the game. So
yeah, but back in like 7th edition, it was like absolutely broken, like 2-up rerollables, teleporting Death Stars. Like it wasn't even Warhammer as it's recognizable today. Yeah.
So I feel like that would just drew me back into it because War Machine was a very balanced, like very, very balanced game. It's more like a chess type game. And
so you actually enjoyed War Machine more, right? And then you kind of got back into Warhammer?
Yeah, because I actually went to Nova and played War Machine instead of 40K. Like Jesse and everybody went to play 40K. I played War Machine and did really well at War Machine. And then eventually it just died out. Like there was nobody in the area that played it. So I had to switch to another game to keep up with everything. So 40K, I still have the models. I was like, hey, let me just learn it again, because Grey Knight's Codex, actually Grey Knight's Codex was just coming out, the new one, and that's what brought me back.
So you've been back to 40K not too long now, like a few years.
I would say 3 years. Yeah.
3 years. How'd you find coming back into the game? Was it like recognizable to you? Was it easy to pick it up? I mean, you've already had Warhammer experience, competitive War Machine experience. So I imagine it wasn't too difficult. But how was your experience?
It was the movement, shooting, and charge phase was easy. Rolling dice was easy. The thing that I didn't comprehend was the way you built a list, like having like 1 HQ, 3, like the detachments, the brotherhoods. Like I didn't know what any of that was. So it was very confusing. Even somebody who played the game before, to try and get into this game and trying to realize, what the hell am I doing to build a list? So that took me a while to get into it. But once you do realize, like once you get the first codex, you know how to build a list, you can really do it for any other codex. So
yeah. Do you mean more like on the logistical side, it was hard to build a list because it wasn't like explained well, or like you had no idea what to put into your list to make it a good list?
Not a good list. It was more of like when you get a codex, you have 4 or 5 brotherhoods, or not brotherhoods, but like detachments.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about stratagems. I didn't know about detachments. I didn't know about any of this stuff. So we didn't have that back in the day. So it was kind of like new, like the law of 3. I'd never heard of. So
yeah, wow.
That was
so much of the stuff we take for granted now. I gotta tell you.
Yeah, exactly. So when I try to explain to people, like new people, you have to really dumb it down on how to explain 40K and get into it.
Absolutely. So there's a big gap between winning Nova and innovating competitive lists from not even knowing what a stratagem is. How did you like excel at the game and learn the ropes and get good at it all of a sudden?
A lot of people ask me that. It's like, how are you just good at the game? And it really just comes down to core rules, because I say this all the time. I compare like you guys and Vanguard Tactics and even my buddy like Nolan. These guys know everything about anything of this game. Jack Harpster, like you guys could literally name every single unit, every single part of this game. I can't name you anything. Like I know my armies, I know what they do, but I look across the table. I couldn't even name one of the sisters units that I was playing in the top table. Like I know what they do, kinda, because I've seen them before, but I don't know what they do. I don't know their names, I don't know their stratagems, all that stuff. So what makes me so good at the game is knowing the core rule book, knowing how movement works, how to move block, how to do pile-ins, consolidates, working the objective markers, doing secondary missions. Like that, honestly, if you get really good at that part of the game, you can play any army and you can play at the competitive level.
Yeah. That's so true, because that's the part that doesn't change, right? Like, you're always going to move with the mechanics of moving, and there's always going to be the same secondary tactical cards, and it's the same 15 or whatever missions. Totally true.
Yep. Yeah. So like if I play against another list, like Tal, for example, I've played them before. I know what they look like on the table. So when people explain to me their list, I'm like, can I see it? Like, can you just put it on top of the table so I see what I'm looking at?
You're like a very visual person. I like that.
Yes. So I'm like, all right, those breachers, they killed my unit last time. So I'm going to try to stay away from them. I'm going to go after these things. Right. I couldn't kill that tank last time, so I'm going to ignore that thing. And I'll like go do this. So like learning experience from playing the game and losing, you learn more than really winning. So once you play an army once, especially Gene Stealer Cult, you know what they do and you know what to look out for. So that's kind of what really helped me go so good at the game so fast.
It's just like getting tons of reps for everything and really like learning from those reps.
Yeah. I still haven't played Orcs in 10th edition.
That's kind of crazy, man. I mean, like, I teach Warhammer and coach Warhammer competitively along with playing it. So like for me to know most things, like that's kind of the prerequisite. But most competitive players that we interview on the podcast, they also know a lot of the meta. Like I don't think I've ever heard that answer. I've been doing this for 5 years, right? So like for you to know not nothing obviously, but like not much relative to like what a faction expert knows of all the different factions in the game. You haven't played Orcs. I mean, like to then win super majors is pretty crazy. I mean, I think a lot of players who don't have the ability to play super often or consume tons of content really have no idea what everything does in the game. Or even if you did and you just like had life happen to you and you fell out for like a few months, not even that long in the grand scheme of things, and you come back and 3 codexes happen in a balance patch, you have no idea what's what anymore. A lot of people struggle to keep up with that, but you don't seem to have that challenge. How do you adapt to that?
It's it's so hard to explain because I coach as well over the 40K dirtbags, and my coaching method is I can coach people on the armies that I play because I know them specifically. But when it comes down to armies that I don't know, what I have them do is I have them take like a picture of the deployment, because deployment is huge. If they're not deploying correctly, then you could just improve somebody's game 50% just by seeing how they deploy. Then I see like, all right, what's your first turn picture look like? Because if they're like running out into the middle of the board and like just getting shot up, like I can't do anything. Well, I can coach people by the basics of movement, how you hide, how you do secondaries and stuff like that. So I can coach almost anybody's play style, but I know the like Grey Knights, Death Guard, Custodes, and Chaos. Those are my armies. I can coach them with the units. Like I can build them lists. So
Right.
Knowing the core of the game is, I think, 40K in general. If you can learn the core, you can play 40K at a very high competitive level.
How did you learn the core? Is it just through reps and reps and reps? Did you like read the rule book like it was a math exam? Like how'd you do this?
Yes, I would say reading the core rulebook like a Bible, maybe not as religious, but reading the core rules and looking at keywords, looking at apostrophes, looking at commas, periods.
Oh
When
my
does this
god.
proc? When doesn't this proc? Like I had to pull up 3 or 4 times how the freaking pile-in phase worked, and the judge came over, pulled up the bullet points, and I was like, all right, read those bullet points point by point. And then they're like, all right, you do this, can't do that, go to this one, can't do that one, go to this one, can't do that one, and you can't move. Stuff like that. And even came in down to like a game 8 where me and him are, one of the top players, and we both have different arguments about the same rule, but I know my way is correct, and same with the judge. Even his buddy is saying like, hey, this is the right way to do it, and it's just very hard to comprehend it. So I would say reading the core rules on the phases definitely helps out in 40K, because if you just think you know the rule, you don't know the rule.
I think a lot of people, myself included, often learn 40K through the experience of playing it and like, oh, you got a roll wrong? Now I know it for next time. And like, not to say that we've never read a rule book or anything, but like you said, reading it religiously, like studying the commas and the order of bullet points, that's a level that I think most players do not really explore. And I think it's really telling to see that you've gained so much skill from just kind of absorbing the information like that instead of just doing it experientially.
And I gotta say, I hate reading. So I'm not like, I don't read books like every single day. It's more of like, I look at the fight phase and I look at those rules. I don't look at like all the other paragraphs in between. Like even the pivot rules, I still are about, but like the fight phase, the shooting phase, the pile-in phase, the ruin rules, like all those are the rules that come up every single game.
So like if you played in WTC format and they had that 30-page booklet of how Charging Through Ruins works in their format, you would read all up in that stuff?
All I would need to know is, can I block out 1 inch or not? It's like, if I can.
You think it's a yes or no question, but they found 30 pages of answer to that.
Then you leave like that one guy back so you can fit one base in there, so everybody else can't pile and get base to base. Like,
do they have like different rules for different base sizes? It's insane.
Yep. Yeah. So like I know 20, like Vanilla, I played him at my first GT. And I learned that you can fit a 25 millimeter base within that 1 inch wall when he was running broken elves, and that little blitz guy would run 30 inches across table and get in in your front line. So it's like
the little blitz guy, the solitaire.
Yep. See, that's my example.
That's it.
The little blitz
that's
guy.
Prime example, dude. I
not
love
the solitaire. So
the little blitz guy.
I learned from experience. So like with the 25 mil bases and stuff, like you can fit like little Accursed Cultists in 1 inch ruins, and then move in that way. So yeah, I mean, experience and knowing how the rules work.
How often are you able to get games in and actually like practice this stuff?
That's a good question. So moved into a house. I got married October 28th of last year. I moved into a house in February. So the last year has just been super hectic. But usually I'll get a game in on Monday nights. That's our gaming night. And then I'll try and get one more throughout the week. And then I usually do 1 to 2 RTT/GT a month. So
that's pretty small.
1 to 2 a week, and then 1 RTT to 2 RTTs a month.
I think that's really like a consistent competitive level that like pretty much most top tier competitive players hit. Is that like 1 to 2 per week, and then like plus a tournament? I think if you're really competing seriously, like it's not an insurmountable amount, but it's also like not insignificant at all. And I imagine you're constantly thinking about it too.
Yeah, and I have to keep up with YouTube as well. Like just making sure that we have content coming out and tactical videos and battle reports and stuff like that. So uh, I got to get at least 1 or 2 games in a week to keep the dirtbags happy.
Is the Dirtbags content creation like a part time for you, just like extracurricular?
Yeah, like it's the Patreons are really what pushed me to keep going with it.
Yeah.
Like those guys are just amazing. Like they I had a dirtbag Patreon, Doug, who literally would just do so much research for me and like make sure I'm like talking, networking, all this stuff. So like these guys literally are pushing me to perform and to stay vigilant and also stay professional in this super high competitive meta. Like I had a lot of people, it was amazing. We didn't really even get to Nova yet, but I had a lot of people come up to me in Nova and say, "Hey man, thank you so much for what you do. Like you got me into the competitive scene." And then also there's a lot of guys that come up to say, "You play so clean." I'm like, that is hearing that as a competitive player is
Yeah.
probably the best comment somebody could say to you, because there's a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of top competitive players that are just sneaky sharks, like cheat, like they shouldn't have that title, but when you get that comment said to you by somebody that watches your channel and your streams, like that is such a cool feeling for people to say it to you at a GT.
Yeah, it really is. I'm so glad you're getting this similar experiences. I mean, like it's really powerful stuff here, like motivational, like knowing you make a difference in other people's lives like that. And check it out, folks. Like the Dirtbags. You have a Patreon. What else do you have? Like a YouTube, a podcast, something like that.
Yeah, so we do YouTube mainly. We have a Discord, which is probably one of the best Discords out there. Like no negative, whatever. They just, it's just not around. The coaches are all over. We actually just started a merch store. That was cool. A lot of guys started buying merch. But yeah, mainly YouTube and then Patreon for coaching. So check out the YouTube channel just because that's where most of our shit goes.
Awesome. Well, hopefully you get a big boost off this. But to bring it back a little, let's talk about the list you actually played to Nova. And I know you've been basically piloting it since the CSM Codex came out. So I'm really excited to see like what made you develop it and bring it and how you manage it.
Dude, I can't wait to talk about this because what's his name? Manny Chima. Not to give him a shout out, but he was known for like the triple ACDC guy, right?
Right.
I made that list right when the book came out. right when the Codex came out. I was like, I literally have been playing this list forever, but I haven't been to the GT scene with Chaos because I was going for Grey Knights when I was playing it. So I was going for #1 Grey Knight player in the world. So I couldn't play the triple ACDC list. So now that I'm playing Chaos and going for #1 Chaos in the world, I can actually play what I've been making for the past 2 years.
Nice. That's such a
that's
a
that was
rewarding
kind of the
feeling,
beginning
right?
of it. Dude,
Yeah.
so this list, I love the fact that it's going good because of how bad the detachment was ranked and how like nobody even saw it coming. So
Yeah, it's really come out of nowhere here.
yeah, so when the new codex got released, I didn't get the book ahead of time. So a lot of people like leak, all the stuff. So I'm there printing out the detachment rules and the stratagems and the enhancements and stuff like that. And I'm practicing games with this like stupid detachment with all these bodies because before this detachment came out, I was running triple ACDC with Abaddon with the 4-up invuln, which was really, really good, almost unkillable. And then when that got like changed, I ran Abaddon with 100 cultists, just 5 units of 20 cultists with the crown, because the crown gave everybody within 9 inches of 4-up invuln.
Yes,
So you have 100 cultists.
Derek, you're speaking my language. Yes.
With the crown that all have a 4-up invuln save as cultists, and they all have lethal and sustain on 5s because of the Hellbrute and full rerolls with Abaddon. So that list was just dumb. Once it got nerfed because of Damned, you can't run Abaddon with Damned anymore. I literally have 100 cultists and triple ACDC. So let me just combine it together and see what comes of it. So that was my first mindset.
What makes you want to play 200 models, like as a concept? I just think about that and I'm just like misery,
Oh yeah, so it's, and I tell this to my dirtbags, is like I play this because it's honestly my best chance at winning. When you look at other lists and other detachments and other armies that you have, it's like, well, can any of those beat this list? And if the answer is no, I'm like, all right, well, then I'm playing this list. So it's not necessarily the most fun list to play, but it is the most competitive in this current meta, current state. So I wouldn't say it's more of like I'm looking to break my back every GT and have a headache after 3 rounds of moving 200 models. It's more of like, this is my best chance of placing high and winning events, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
I feel like when I
was 5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I feel like when I was more into the competitive scene, I would often make those choices and lead to some of these extreme builds to like optimize my chances of winning. But these days that's a lot of work. But more power to you on it, for sure.
Yeah. So it really just started with practice, with just everything I could put on the table. I was practicing Abbey first with it. I was practicing Vastor with it. I was practicing Beastmen with it. So I was just testing out different versions of the list. My first game with this list, with the printed out detachment rules, was against Tao, who's like a really good Brian. He plays in our meta, really good Tao player. Plays top 16 last year with Tao, and I was like, I don't really beat him with Tao, so I beat him with Tao, and I was like, holy shit, how the hell did this just beat Tao? So I'm like, what is this? Then the next game I went into T-Suns, a really good T-Sun player, placed 5th. I was 4th at ACO, he placed 5th, and I beat T-Suns with it, all the Flamers. How the hell did this just beat T-Suns? Like top T-Suns. So then I'm like, all right, what else can I go into? Knights. Let's try against Knights. Let's try it against this. Let's try it. And we just kept trying different armies, and I kept winning and winning and winning. I was like, what the hell is going on? So then I bring it.
That's a good way to do it, right? Like if it doesn't lose, like keep playing it.
Yeah. So then I bring it, and I'm tweaking it like here and there ever so often, and then I bring it to an RTT, and I go 3-0 in RTT. Like nobody's prepared for it. So I win the RTT, and then I bring it to ACO. Let's just go to ACO. I got 205 models. Nobody's seen this before. So when I bring it to ACO, I get on stream. I think two or three times at ACO. And this is the first time Joe or anybody has seen this cultist list. So on day 2, I'm getting pulled in from Joe. I'm like, hey, they want to see you on stream because they have no idea why this list is winning, the events. So I play on stream. I keep the Death Guard player in his deployment zone until turn 5. So everybody's like, what the hell is going on? Next game, I go into that. And then the final game, or the second game, I played Matt Laura. And I'm not sure if you saw Matt Laura's list at ACO, but it's basically 30 barb gaunts that like have like D6 plus X.
So it's like another army designed to kill hordes.
It was a meme list, yeah. So we have 2 meme lists playing at ACO on game 6, and my list beat his meme list that was made to face Horde. So that just pushed it over the edge. And then we got into like game 7 the next day, and I was just so tired. I just messed up and picked the wrong deployment. We played Chosen Battleground. I put all the objectives on my side. It should have been spread out. It was just bad play. But
we're putting the cart before the horse here. I need to hear what this list is.
Which list? The Blood Angel list?
No, yours. The one we're talking about today. We need context.
All right. So that was that. Let's get into the list. Is that what you want to do?
Let's get into the list. I love it. I love that you've refined it through the trials by fire. Like literally tournament, game, RTT, ACO. I mean, you've been crushing it out there, but we need to know how it works. What is this list?
Right. So first off, Cypher. You need Cypher in every Chaos Space Marine list. Cypher, the Vect is just so busted now. I was running Cypher before Vect was cool. Like his Vect was only battle tactics first, but then they changed the Vect rule to work on anything. So I was running him when it was just battle tactics. So now that it's everything, he's just insanely good. He's more of like turn 1, run him behind the cover and kind of wait till you really need him to run out and save for armor contempt. Because having armor contempt against AP1 weapons is just not good, especially against Terminators. So he's the guy that runs out to stop armor contempt or Overwatch or interrupt or something like that. Really good at the Blood Angels and other melee armies.
Right.
So that's his really mindset. Also, don't dark path with Cypher. I learned that religiously is do never dark pack with Cypher. Because when you do, you're going to fail, and you're going to take 3 damage every single time. So
trial by experience.
I almost lost Lone Star Open because of that. So Cypher is in every single list I play. Now then we got the Dark Apostle. Everybody's like, why the hell are you running a Dark Apostle? Well, Dark Apostle in a list that everybody's leadership is 7 or above, you need that leadership 5 for something. So he's leadership 5. He also has +1 to wound always with your Accursed Cultist list. He also has a special ability, which I actually forgot a couple times, but you can un-battle shock a unit within 12 inches in the beginning of any phase.
That's really nice.
So that actually won me the game against Matt Laura because he battle shocked with his nids like everybody besides that unit. So he basically walks up and says, all right, that hard hitting Accursed Cultist unit is now not battle shocked. So then that allows me to do my full rerolls to hit and wound against his other barb cons on the other side of the table. So he comes in clutch a lot of the times. He can also bring back D3 models. Now, when you look at the bring back D3 models, you can bring back 3 big Accursed Cultist units or Accursed Cultist.
Wow. Like the mutants or whatever they're called, the big dudes.
Yep. So you're fine with killing like 1 or 2 of those mutants. Usually you kill the little guys, but you're fine with taking like some wounds on the big guys because when you roll that 3, you're like, hey, guess what? They're back. And now that's 9 more wounds you just brought back.
That's pretty awesome. That is really good.
Yeah. And the first time I ran this list, I thought you could put it on a Dark Commune, but you could only put it on a Dark Apostle. That's mainly why he's in the list.
Nice. Okay, so what else we got?
2 Dark Communes. One of them is the Goad, which is the +1 strength if you're at below starting strength. So when they come on the board or rapid ingress, you're basically doing a Dark Pact. And if you pass, you try and roll again to fail. So that way you can kill one of your guys because it doesn't work until one of the guys is dead. Once one of the guys is dead, you get +1 strength. So your big beasts are hitting at strength 6. And then if they're at below half strength, which all the little guys, once they're all dead, you're now at a below half strength. All your big guys are D6 +3 at strength 6, AP 1, 2 damage.
Wow. That slams. No,
a hard hitting unit.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're the ones that rapid ingress every single time. So
and that they also give you once per game advance and charge, +1 hit, +1 wound, and a 5-up invul for your entire Accursed Cultist pack.
Exactly. So the 5-up invul just makes them so chunky. The Mind Witch is hilarious. When you bring them on, you can basically get 3 shots, hitting on 3s, strength 5, AP 1, 2 damage, but sustain 2. So sometimes you dark back and just go ham with your Mind Witch.
This is just like a random lady in the unit.
Yeah, it's just a random dude in the Dark Commune unit that can come on the table if you need him, and then you just got an 18-inch Mind Bullet coming at you at sustain 2.
Nice. So you're typically outflanking one of these.
One of them is always in reserves for a rapid ingress, and that's the Dark Commune with the Goad on it.
Interesting.
Every single game. The
What
one
does the
game I
Goad
didn't
do?
do it, I lost. That's the +1 strength, and if you're
that's right.
below half strength, you get a +1 attack.
Cool.
Last Dark Commune is Warp Foresight, which gives you a Scout 6 ability.
All right, and the Accursed Cultists have Scout natively on their data sheet, and one of the challenges is if you join a character to them, that character is just going to take Scout off of your squad, but this lets you kind of scout up with them.
Yes. So when you're playing, on the board with the Dark ACDC unit with Scout, you're basically moving up 6 inches, moving up 8 if not advancing, because you're probably going to advance turn 1. So you're potentially moving 6 +14, and then you get +2 to charge. So you're moving 20 inches turn 1 before you roll a charge roll. So that's the Dark Commune. And then we got Fabius Bile. I love Bile. I read his books. I was like, I really want to test Bile. I put him in the list first because of the books. And when I saw that he gets back up on a 2+, I was like, this guy is perfect for secondaries on this list because it's just an even more annoyance to try and kill something that gets back up and then potentially could do another action next turn. So he makes a unit with Cultist, +1 strength, +1 toughness. So now your Cultist toughness 4 potentially. But also he gets the damned keyword because he joins the Cultist unit. So he can do any like rerolls or +2 movement or +2 charges. Like him getting out of a Rhino 11 inches with a Cultist unit and then being able to get another 2 inch for a charge or shooting 18 inches with his anti-infantry 2 pistol.
This guy's awesome. I love Fabius Bile. I also think he's like one of the coolest characters ever, and I like the stand-up rule, but I've not been able to get him to be like worth the cost. But I think in this detachment, he might really. I love that. That's saucy.
Yeah, so he in a Rhino, especially Doug gave me that idea. But in a Rhino, he can shoot 18 inches with his pistol, like just sure. And it's anti-infantry 2+2 damage. So it's like he has a little bit of a shot to try and kill some Marines as well. But yeah, having him join the Cultist unit gives him access to the abilities in the detachment. So
Okay.
super quick.
Yeah.
Then we go into the battle lines. So we have the 5 units of cultists. Now they're not in 20-man units because I don't want to do Call the Horde, an easy Call the Horde target. So they're all in 10 mans. They're just basic action monkeys. They have sticky objectives, which is hilarious. And they basically just sit in the back and they block out the board by turn 2.
So I see a lot of lists run like 1 to 2 squads of cultists, and I know you're playing in the chaos cult detachments. Of course, you're going to buff up cultists, but they're still like garbage cultists. Why are you taking 5 squads of 10?
So bodies, you need at least 20 of them to block out your backfield, like when you spread them all out. And then what I do on turn 2 is they basically advance forward, and then I bring in 20 more on the backfield to block out again. So they just are moving up in ranks to either run onto an advantage, an objective, or they're getting the charge off to stop, like fight first or something like Overwatch. So my ACDC unit doesn't get the shot. So they're kind of like meat shields in this list.
Interesting.
If you are listening to this, it probably means you play Warhammer 40k. And if you're playing Warhammer, you know you need a lot of dice. Baron of Dice is where we get our dice from. They produce amazing different kinds of dice. We just recently got all kinds of different faction dice shipped to us, which we use on our stream games. But not only do they look really cool, but they're highly customizable. You can get different symbols, corners that are square, corners that are round, different shapes and sizes, different sided dice. It's all the rage. And they're customizable in color and design as well. They are so cool looking. Not only that, but they feel great to roll in your hands. I've never held dice that roll and feel this good. Not only that, but they are scientifically perfectly balanced. There are tons of case studies on people rolling thousands of dice and recording all the results that they get. And sometimes you might get a die that rolls just a few too many ones. We've all had to throw it out before. These dice are not like that. They are perfectly balanced to a T, thousands of rolls, perfect distribution. If you want to take your Warhammer game seriously and make sure the dice are not screwing you over, get some
Your
Baron of
opponent,
Dice.
I guess, like not just shoot anything else besides your regular cultists.
So they have an ACDC unit that advanced 20 inches on turn 1, staring at them in the face. They have the Seekers, which we didn't get to yet, but they're usually blocking out the entire movement of an army, turn 1. And then you have, 50 other dudes advancing forward onto the objectives. So they can shoot my cultists all the way in the back, or they can try and kill the unit that's standing right in front of them.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, so you got 50 cultists running around. What else we got?
60, the max I can take. Traded guardsmen. They would all be traded guardsmen if I could,
but so another 60 dudes just wandering around.
Yeah, and now these dudes are OPSEC 2, which is so good. We were testing different types of guns with them, the sniper gun, the grenade launcher, and I feel like with this detachment, just having a melta gun that can hit a tank for like an auto wound on a 6 is hilarious. Like when you walk up a cultist, there was one guy left against my last game at Nova, and he had the melta on him. I walked up, shot him, rolled a 6, and blew up a freaking rhino just randomly. He was battle shocked too, so it didn't even matter. But yeah, so we have one melta, one plasma for just random shots into Space Marines to try and kill Space Marines, and then a flamer for like other Horde or other chaff that I'm trying to go into. So those weapons I feel like do the best with this 10-man group. But again, there's 10 more bodies, all OPSEC 2, and they're also kind of meat shield / action monkeys and steal objectives all the time. Like 20 OPSEC just walk onto a point.
Yeah. And like at some point you just have so many bodies that some just make it through.
Yep. So basically, like I might charge 20 cultists into a big tank just to say, okay, here's 20 dudes in combat with your tank. You can't kill all of them, but I have 40 OPSEC on the point. So it's like they're probably just moving up 8 if they do the desperate pack, and then they get +2 to charge. They're moving really far, really fast. So I can get a ton of bodies onto a point, and then you just can't take it over. You can't chew through enough because now there's 20 more bodies walking in behind them on the same point.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So 110 dudes running around, 50 cultists, 60 guardsmen, max accursed cultists also. And you mentioned some seekers. Am I missing anything else in here?
Rhino.
A humble rhino.
It stops people from getting rid of Bring It Down.
Oh, so it forces it in the deck. But also it's like a nice another action piece and, dude, like transport. to carry.
The Rhino is MVP, honestly. Like nobody goes after it, but it gets me so many points. It's speed 12. You're basically getting your bile unit 11 inches out of it. So it does like the action where you have to do the secondary in its rain feature. Like if you live, then you get the points. There's been so many times where I do it in my opponent's deployment zone, and they just don't have anything to kill it at that point because there's just so many dudes on the table that nobody goes after it. So it just gets me a free 6 points on like turn 4 or 5.
Dude, this army is absolutely savage.
I freaking love it.
Let me ask some questions here. You're playing Chaos Cult. Obviously there are a lot of.
Did we go into the allied units?
Oh, there's more. Sorry, I just thought we were done. This is endless. Okay.
Dude, when Joe puts it up on the one, it was War Games Live, and it takes up the entire screen because of how many models there are.
I bet.
It's 205, by the way. Beast of Nurgle. That was an addition to this list. I was running Spawn. Spawn just didn't do it for me. They won me LSO, but having 0 OBSEC and not being able to do actions is what got me to take them out and add Beast of Nurgle with the same amount of points. Having another Deep Strike unit, really tanky boy that gets healed every single phase. He's actually done really well this Nova. So Beast of Nurgle was key in this list. Then we got Demonettes and Seekers. Demonettes are the tax for the Seekers. The Seekers have a Scout 9. They have oval bases. So you're able to basically scout up 9, move up 14, if not advance, and then you can either spread them out across the front line so they can't move through them, or you charge like other chaff to just either kill something or get on objectives or do the one mission where deploy teleport homers in the opponent's deployment zone. Like there's a lot of missions now where you could do that turn 1 in your opponent's deployment zone. So basically they scout 9, move up 14 and be like, hey, 4 points in your deployment zone. But no, they're mainly there to just block out so all of the rest of the Horde can just run forward.
Makes a lot of sense. You're buying yourself some space. So I've got a lot of questions. I'm so excited to ask these questions, Derek, but you just keep having units.
Nurglings are only there for the scout moves. They literally are only in the list to stop people from infiltrating in front of my scout units. So that's why they're there. Demonettes have been key in Nova. People asked in Discord why I run Demonettes. They are the tax for Seekers, but they're OBSEC 2, 8-inch charge out of Deep Strike, and they're just super annoying in your backfield. So yeah, I'm done. Take it away.
You sure? You sure you're done?
There's
not like another hidden unit in there?
No, we're good.
Okay, dude, I've never had this experience before. Where the list just keeps.
I love it. We got a lot of firsts.
Yeah, I know. 5 years later, we're still getting first. All right, so you're playing Chaos Cult. Obviously, that makes sense because you've got a lot of cultists these days. But you can do Accursed Cultists in like any detachment, right? Packbound helps them a lot. Renegade Raiders is pretty popular now too. What does Chaos Cult give you?
The +2 move and +2 charge. That is what separates you from other triple ACDC lists. Is you just out threat them. So it's like my move is 8 base plus I have the +2 to charge, so I can stay out of your threat range without getting charged by you guys. So that's really the main thing, is like you're able to get onto objectives turn 1 like really easily because you're speed 8. Most of the time, a 6-inch movement unit can't get to that center objective or the top objective or whatever. So if I just desperate pack with a 50-point unit, I'm now speed 8. Now I can just move up and do cleanse or move up and do deploy, like whatever it needs to. But that extra 2-inch movement is huge in this detachment. You can't do it coming in from reserves, which would be busted. But having it just for secondaries and getting the initial charge off is what makes it so good. Also, the enhancements, the +1 strength, the bring guys back, and the scout all play into that speed mechanic of the list. Finally, the full real estate wound. I would say that's literally one of the best strats in the entire game, and what makes the Accursed Cultist hit so freaking hard.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately when I look at this detachment, it only buffs Accursed Cultists, and Trader Guardsmen, like damned units, like you said.
That's why you only bring damned units.
You're only bringing damned units and some demons. So no, I mean, I totally get it. I think a lot of players, when I've seen this detachment, try to muddy it up with like guns, like Vindicators or Abaddon or something.
Yeah,
add some damage. How do you? Obviously, the Accursed Cultist hit super hard with access to +1 hit, +1 wound, reroll hits and wounds, but there's only 3 squads squads of those. How do you handle like armies that you just can't kill?
So I played what's the Tyranid list with the big bugs?
Crusher Stampede?
Yes, played Crusher Stampede. I killed 2 Biovores, the 2 Lictors, and I think that was it.
Literally 4 models. I was waiting for you to say you killed all of it, and I'd be like, what the hell are you saying to me? But no, this is the opposite end. You killed like nothing. How did you win this game?
I went first. That's basically how I won.
So it's kind of like we had an Endless Swarm player on a while back, Sam Pope, and he did a similar thing where he goes first, he puts you in gargoyle jail with 20 gargoyles, and that's just like its own win condition. Does your list kind of experience that too, where like you just bodies in front of them? Now I've had the board for 5 turns and the game's over.
Yeah, because basically I advance up the yellow squad with the scout move, and they advance up and usually charge whatever infiltrators they put out front or whatever guys they have on the line. So they're basically charging that and then piling into maybe a bigger target because they have the +1 advance, +1 to or +1 to hit, +1 to wound turn 1 with the free advance. So they're basically getting into your line. So you're using like the yellow unit, or I keep saying yellow unit. My guys are painted yellow. So you're using the guys with the scout. They're the ones that are basically going forward and say, hey, deal with me while I tag up as much as I possibly can turn 1. Then the Seekers, like I said, are basically scouting up 9, either advancing or moving up 14, and either getting another charge to tie up more, or just spreading out and just tying you up in your deployment zone. So that way you have to deal with the Accursed Cultist and the Seekers turn 1 while my other Accursed Cultists on the board are running forward, and all the Traitor Guardsmen are getting onto the points. So on turn 1, I'm getting 10 to 15 on primary. You're getting a 5 if I don't steal your backfield. Most of the time you get either a 5 or a 0 on primary, because by turn 2 everything is on the board or on the objectives.
Makes perfect sense. I mean, going first with such a monstrous amount of OC and many units and speed is like such a death nail for so many people. What happens if you go second? What's like the play pattern?
So basically the guys are on the line for the scout. They either move back behind cover, like behind the terrain, or they kind of move diagonal. Most of the time they don't really want to be shot because they are my launching unit. So I line them up so that way I have room. So that way I can move them fully 6 inches behind a wall. So either scout forward if I go first, or I scout kind of diagonal / backwards behind cover if I go second. Everybody else is hidden as much as I possibly can. I know it's a lot of bodies on the board, so they might have some shots on like the green unit, or the other Accursed Cultist unit, or like a Traitor Guardsman unit here or there. But most of the time everything's hidden. So if I go second, I'm basically just planning on them moving forward or scaring them enough that they don't want to move forward. So then my turn 2, I just advance them forward anyway and do the same thing.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So I was going to ask about your deployment. You kind of answered it in this one. I was like, with 205 bodies, I imagine it's pretty impossible to hide the whole thing. So how do you attempt to hide it all? Are you like willing to put like layers upon layers of cultists and guardsmen behind your home field ruin, and then like that's where they all are? Because you might be able to hide it all from angles, but it's going to be all concentrated into the same location. So it's kind of not bodies everywhere. It's all bodies in one spot. How do you maintain having bodies everywhere while deploying conservatively?
So let me tell you what's in reserves. We have 20 Traitor Guardsmen, 20 Cultists, 10 Demonettes, full units of ACDC, and the Nurgle Beast are all in reserves.
Every game.
It gives you about 70 models off the table. And it's funny because it's exactly 500 points for the reserve part of it, and then the extra is just the deep strike guys. So those are what's off the table every single game. So I have a little bit of room to kind of spread out and put the guys behind cover. And then on turn 2, that's when you start seeing another 50 to 70 models come back on the table to really just soak up the entire rest of the board.
Wow. And that's like, because they're in strategic reserve and deep strike and like all these different combinations and rapid ingress, you actually do get to come in all over the place.
Yeah, like if you go first, you're blocking out most of the board. So then you just bring in guys to block the rest of the board. But when you go into an opponent and you say, all right, what's in your reserves? And they're like, well, honestly, you can block out the board, right? I'm like, yeah. So they don't put anything in reserves. So everything they have usually is on the table. Right. So I can basically control the reserve game by bringing my guys in really anywhere that they need to come in at. Plus, they need to kind of keep their backfield blocked out or screened out as much as they can because of my reserves. So I win the reserve / starting of the game because they're already scared of how many models there are, how fast it is, how many people are in reserve, stuff like that. So they don't usually put a lot in reserve, so I don't have to worry about me being blocked out of the side table edges.
There are some missions like Scorched Earth and Purge the Foe come to mind, where you can't rack up an enormous lead in points by just being all over the table on every single objective. Your opponent can block out one expansion objective and hold 2 for 10 on Scorched Earth, for example. Just put the army there. And in Purge the Foe, half the points come from killing. So in those missions where your primary strategy, for board control domination, isn't as rewarded, what's your fallback?
Another great question. The Purge the Foe is literally my worst matchup.
Always is.
Yeah, 100%. It is literally the one that I almost lost Lone Star with because I went against a Knights player round 2.
Oh, that's brutal. Yeah.
And I couldn't kill anything else to get more points. So luckily I won out on the primary with the holding more mission part of it rather than killing more. So all I had to do was kill one baby knight a turn and then just tie up all of the objectives and just give him the kill more. Just kind of play more of a defensive type game rather than the offensive type game. So if you're going with this list and you're playing Purge the Foe, just go for holding the 3 points and give him
holding
1 or 2. And if you can stop him to a 0, which I do a couple times, you keep him to a 0 for holding an objective, and now you're basically going to win. I kind of was mad because I didn't read the full packet with what missions were played. I was like, all right, they're playing Purge the Foe day 1. So I practiced Purge the Foe maybe 7 times before Nova. And I was like, what the hell do I do with this mission? So it took me till the game 6 to figure out, all right, I just have to camp 3 objectives and just throw bodies at them, right?
Yeah.
So I played and I won the first day. I forget who was against, but then on day 3, I find out that Purge the Foe is the first mission again. Like, are you kidding me?
Double Purge the Foe.
I go into this tournament thinking all right, I got past it. Good. I played my worst mission matchup, and then on day 3, bottom of day 2, I was like, damn. I literally have to play Purge the Foe a second time.
Dude, no one can say you didn't earn it.
Yeah, it was against T-Suns too, which is literally top bracket.
Yeah. Don't that's part 2. That's part 2. You're going to put the cart before the horse.
So this gets a really, really hard army. So that was Purge the Foe. What was the second one? Scorched Earth.
Scorched Earth, yeah.
I love Scorched Earth because literally you can just burn whenever you need to. You already have most of the mission or most of the objectives anyway. So you're like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna burn that one this turn. And then you're over there, you're like, I guess I'll burn that one this turn. And then if you don't protect your backfield, you can then just burn the backfield turn 5 and just get 10 points. So Scorch isn't too much of an issue for this list.
How do you handle yourself getting move blocked and shot? That's you are the one who does the move blocking. I get it. But sometimes someone else gets to go first and move block you. In that scenario, if they're just doing that while they're shooting you, it can get pretty brutal pretty fast as you're not on all the objectives and doing your thing. What's your plan for that?
So usually when they have infiltrators or stuff like that, I use those infiltrators and move blockers as my launching point. So a really, really good Eldar player, Ynnari player, played me at Lone Star, and he basically went first and blocked out most of the objectives with his wind runners that scout 9 and then they move forward. So basically he scouted 9, moved forward, blocked out most of my ACDC units, and got into combat with my scout unit turn 1. So what I did was I basically shot with all the traitor guardsmen behind the Accursed Cultist, kept 1 or 2 of them alive, then charged that unit with the +2 to charge, wrap around kind of like a snake, just going all the way around, and then getting to the back with the pile-in. So
wow.
You're kind of using your speed. You're running kind of sideways and keeping one little guy near that one dude that lived. So that way when you charge, you start 11 inches away with your big guys. And then when you charge forward past the charge target, you then ended closer than 11 inches. But now you're closer to let's say a tank or their back unit that's now within 3 inches for the pile-in. and you successfully made a charge. Now you can pile into their backfield off of their quote screens.
Right.
So you have enough traded guardsmen to shoot their screens.
There's so much jank into the positioning and placement of all these models. Like, I don't even know where to start with that. I want to save that good stuff for like the actual moves you made in the games, which is what we're going to talk about in part 2. Derek, I got one more question for part 1 before we get into that good stuff, because I know you got it. Give it for me. If you had one piece of advice for an aspiring Warhammer player, what would it be?
Read the core rules.
I knew you were going to say that.
Just read the rules.
So simple, so profound. I mean, it works.
Yeah.
Awesome, Derek. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about your army. It's really innovative. It's inspiring. It's really cool. And I will be the first to admit that we were wrong about Chaos Cult in the tier list. You have proven some shit here.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll catch you all in part 2. You can join on our Patreon, patreon.com/AOW40K. Check out Derek's content creation. That is, Derek, what is it again?
40K Dirtbags on YouTube.
40K Dirtbags on YouTube. Check it out if you want to learn about chaos and all the janky ways to use the rulebook. Derek's got you covered. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. We'll catch you over in part 2 for our patrons. Until then, we'll see you next week.
Like what you just listened to? Check out Art of War Down Under and Art of War Unbroken on the competitive 40K network. theartofwar40k.com.